And joining me now is NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapur, and Vaughn Hillyard has the latest from the Trump campaign. Thank you both so much for joining us. Sahil, I want to start with you. Harris says she has a plan to pay for her agenda. So what do the experts say? Do we have enough details of her agenda to even know for sure?
Hey, Gabe. Well, the answer is yes. Kamala Harris does have a plan to pay for her policies with a caveat, and I'll get to that in a moment. Let's first take a look at the policies that Kamala Harris is primarily campaigning on, starting with housing, that new ad she has out. She's calling for tax incentives to build homes, a credit for first-time buyers, home buyers worth $25,000, increasing the child tax credit, especially for parents of newborns, and new powers to tackle corporate price gouging. Now, the numbers. Economists have tallied up the numbers on the Harris agenda and the Trump agenda, and let's show them. Kamala Harris has $5 trillion in revenues. That is, she's endorsing $5 trillion in the White House, in the Biden White House budget, mostly on corporations and upper earners to make a lot of money, raise a lot of money rather, and $2 trillion in spending and tax breaks. Trump, on the other hand, has called for $5 trillion in mostly tax breaks, and he has under $3 trillion in tariffs. That is his main proposal, which means Harris has a surplus right now in her agenda, and Trump has more red ink than he has revenue raisers. The caveat, of course, is that this is not the entirety of either of their agendas. Of course, if they put more ideas on the table, that can change, but that is where we are now.
And Sahil, how much of this is new versus expanding what the Biden administration had in place? So, if Trump tries to tie her to the president, is there room to distance herself with his policy agenda?
From a broad vision standpoint, Gabe, it's more of a continuation of the Biden administration policies. And the reason is the way policy gets made in the Democratic coalition is on the basis of consensus. It's a very ideologically diverse coalition to keep all the different interests aligned. They look for things that can win over the vast breadth of the party. So on housing, this is something that the Biden administration has tried to do for a while. On the child tax credit, President Biden has tried to do this as well. What Kamala Harris is doing is she's putting her own stamp on it. She's changing some of the details. She's talking about it in a way that's unique to her, that's authentic to her. That housing story of her mom having to save for a decade. Also on corporate price gouging, she's giving prosecutors more power to tackle price gouging. She's a prosecutor herself. She comes at this from a different place than Joe Biden. So that's where the differences are, points of emphasis, more so than general broad vision.
And Sahil, detailed fiscal policy has normally been the purview of Republicans during election season. So is the vice president trying to appeal to those moderate Republicans who may feel left behind by Trump's brand of conservatism?
That's exactly what she's trying to do, Gabe. She's trying to appeal to soft Republican center-right voters in states like Georgia and Arizona. The key reason that those states shifted from red to blue in the last election was a lot of voters in the suburbs of Phoenix, suburbs of Atlanta who used to vote for Mitt Romney, who are more comfortable with his economic vision, are deeply turned off by Trump's brand of politics. These are not Bernie Sanders supporters. They're not particularly interested in a transformative, progressive economic vision, but they are open to supporting a Democrat if it's a moderate Democrat. Joe Biden captured that energy in 2020. Now Kamala Harris is trying to replicate that this year.
All right, Sahil, thank you. Vaughn, I want to turn to you. We know that Trump likes to talk about his no tax on tips and tariffs, but what specifics do we have on his economic agenda?
Right. I think that this, when you break down the numbers that Sahil and you were just getting at here, is what led to, if I may, from the first Trump administration, there is a track record that led to Nikki Haley, when she was running as a Republican rival to Donald Trump, to call in question whether Donald Trump was actually a conservative, noting that he added more to the national debt than any president in United States history. Adam Kinzinger, the one-time Republican congressman at the Democratic convention last week, saying that Donald Trump is not conservative. But that is where, when you actually look at the policy plans for what would be a second Trump administration, he calls for extending the 2017 tax cuts, which keeps the corporate tax rate at 21%. By contrast, Kamala Harris wants to increase that back up to 28% to bring in greater revenue. But you also look at the tariff, which would be 10% on all goods coming into the United States, but 60% on all goods coming in from China, which for Donald Trump, just last week when he was asked about how he would pay for some of the tax credits that he has talked about, for the cut in revenues because of tax breaks, he said growth, which when you are looking at growth, there are some economists who have questioned, right, to what extent do the tariffs have a negative impact on growth because of the limited production capabilities that would, in the immediate at least, be able to help be produced because of reliance on parts and other goods coming from overseas.
So, Vaughn, Does the Trump campaign feel secure in their lead on the economy? You know, just a couple of weeks ago, was it last week, the week before, it all seems to blur together. You know, they tried to hold an event talking about, rising grocery prices, and, Trump went off and talked about something else. Are they confident that, one, he can stay on message on the economy, and two, does it really matter because, they have such a lead on the economy to begin with?
You know, I've actually noticed, Gabe, that over the last 2 weeks specifically, really since the grocery price increase over the last 4 years was highlighted at that event at his Bedminster Club, but Donald Trump has talked a little bit less about the economy compared to other issues, notably when you're looking at inflation. Right? 2 years ago, during the height of the midterm elections, when a lot of political analysts thought that Republicans were going to have major wins because of the state of the economy and inflation, which at the time was 7, 8, 9%, and yet Democrats had significant wins around the country. If you look at where inflation is now, it's now under 3%. And when you look at the stock market, just over 2 weeks ago, there was one day in which the stock market fell, and Donald Trump and his campaign foreshadowed it as the, quote, Kamala collapse, forecasting that the economy would fall, at least the stock market would fall lower. But that's not happened. Ever since then, the stock market has continued to hit record highs. And so on the stock market front, which Donald Trump has always suggested is a key barometer over the effectiveness of the current economy, and then also inflation, understanding it's now below 3%, some of those key economic figures, well, the increasing grocery prices, for instance, compared to 4 years ago, and gas prices is notably higher. There are some of those issues that I think that you should expect the Trump campaign to focus in more and leave some other arguments like inflation and the stock market more off to the side.
Well, Vaughn, I want to turn now quickly to another topic. Yesterday, Trump suggested he might back out of that first debate. Now, just a short time ago, he posted on social media that he's in and that the old rules have been agreed to, which would mean mics are muted, but we're not quite sure. Have we heard from the Harris campaign? What do we know at this point?
Right. This is the part. Usually we're used to having the Presidential Debate Commission organize 3 general election debates in which the candidates essentially agree, and they're a part of these debates. But now it's been left up to the 2 separate camps to work with separate news organizations. And September 10th was the first day that we believe there is going to be a debate on ABC. That's just 2 weeks from now. And yet there were questions over some disagreements, possible disagreements over some of the rules. And Donald Trump, just in the last few minutes, Gabe, on his social media platform, has posted that the September 10th debate is in fact on, in that they are going to abide by the same rules that he had with Joe Biden back at that CNN debate back in June, which would include the idea that the microphones would be muted once that candidate's time is up. Now, in real time here, Gabe, we are waiting to hear from the Harris campaign. We are hearing to hear from ABC on whether, in fact, the words of Donald Trump are accurate here. But at this point in time, at least according to the Republican nominee, this debate is going to be moving forward 2 weeks from now.
Vaughn, Hillyard, Sahil, Kapur before that. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.